You are now watching a clip from the Inspired by show. You can watch the full episode on our YouTube channel or listen on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to head over there, leave us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed it, and follow the show. What happened on that journey for then, I assume it was your husband, to say, let's go to this property course? Because it sounds like it was or was it? Is that a correct assumption?
Well, prior to all of that, actually 2004. So long story short, I then got into a relationship. We were together for years. We bought a house. We then broke up. I realised actually I wasn't really happy. Neither was he. We broke up and we were stuck with this house because it was then 2007. Not a good time for us to be buying a house on 100% mortgage away from Liverpool. You know, I think I was probably trying to run away from stuff. So I was stuck with this house in negative equity. I became an accidental landlord, hated every second of it. Still had the house in 2015 when we went to do the training, and it was like a millstone around my neck, but the property prices hadn't moved up. So I don't know if you can imagine being there when, you know, my then husband by this point says we should invest in property, and I was a bit like, what? Did you see what we did? It kind of came about because we lived in this beautiful house. It was a rented property. So by this point we had one of our children. So we had Owen, our eldest, living in this gorgeous house, which was an old converted building. So it was next to the church. We had no garden, but we lived opposite a massive, well, we had a little yard, but it kind of, the lookout of our top windows was into the churchyard and the graveyard. So I always make a joke about the fact that we did have very quiet neighbours, but I loved it. Some people were scared by it. I loved it. It's in a little courtyard. We had a huge field opposite with a big play area for Owen. So I loved this house and we were renting it. And always wanted to buy it. Landlord wasn't willing to sell. So we stayed there for, I can't even remember how long, but the landlord used to collect the rent. You know, I am a Scouser, he used to collect the rent in cash, knocking on the door. And he did this for so long. And Chris has always had an interest in property, always had an interest in architecture predominantly. And so he'd ask our landlord questions, and James would come and he'd, you know, throw the money into his little duffel bag. And he owned all of the 6 houses in this little courtyard. So Chris then asked him, how many houses do you have? And he told him how many it was, and it was 30 something. Chris's face was a bit like that. Do the quick maths. That's a lot of money.
Wow.
So he said, we've got 2 options. You know, we be true Scousers and we mug him, but that's not our style. Or we do what he does. And so I was dead against it because I was like, I've tried this once, accidental landlord. Granted, it was, you know, the caveat being I didn't really train to do it, but I hated it. So I genuinely thought, after much nagging, like we'd been to a different training company first. I didn't like the style. I didn't like the sales. I was very anti-training companies. The irony now being I obviously train for training companies. So it took him a good year to convince me. He'd done a load of research, which is something that he's very good at. He's very diligent. Done a load of research, found the company that we trained with, and it was actually Rob Moore he was listening to a webinar with and was like, you should listen to this. And I listened and was a bit like, it's not for me.
Oh, the irony.
Loud. I know. He's very loud and he's probably saw the traits in him that I have myself. And I was like, fine, okay. So genuinely thought we would go along to this training company, the one day event we went along to, and that Chris would realise it's not for us and, you know, we can't do it and that'll be it. We'd go back to our normal life. But that wasn't the case. And so that's what made us go along. It was, wow. You know, I was reluctantly doing it. Mm-hmm. And now I'm the one who's kind of the driving force behind it. I love that. I guess things happen for us, but we don't know the reasons why.
And so was there any part of you where when Chris obviously continued this idea where you were still not on board?
Oh God, yeah, the whole time. So initially I was like genuinely not on board. I'm not interested. Look up the mistakes I've made. I still owned this house that was still in negative equity by that point, and was like, property was so good. I reckon between 2007 and 2015, something would have changed. So I was quite reluctant, but I trust him implicitly, and he's going to listen to this, isn't he? So he has a very good intuition and a very good gut. He's a real good judge of character, which I absolutely hate and love about him, because I'm very much I'll believe that you're a good person until you prove me wrong. Whereas he has an instinct and a gut, and he's like, there's something about that person that I just don't trust and I don't know why. And I've always kind of poo-pooed the idea and gone, oh, you need to stop being so miserable and, you know, trust people. And every time he's proven right. Mm. And so I've always I believe in him implicitly, and he's not the type of person to go out and just start things. You know, he doesn't move from thing to thing. I've always been a bit of a shiny penny chaser, and he's not like that. He's very diligent. He's very thorough. So I thought, well, there must be something in it. So I think kind of behind the scenes, I must have known deep down that he wouldn't have just done all of this research for no reason. So I suppose I kind of wanted him to prove me wrong.
And he's
proven me wrong.
Yeah,
proven me wrong. Roles reversed though. So he took me along to this one-day event. But bearing in mind, we'd been to a different training company beforehand, we knew that there would be a sale of some sort. And it was like, whatever they're selling, we're not buying. Not doing it. Just going to go along and get the free information. I was quite happy with that because I thought we're just going along so that you can realise it's still the same stuff. It's not for us. And then the offer was made and I was like, me, I want to do it. And Chris then went, oh, hang on a minute. Because he's he's not a procrastinator, but he's very diligent and he's very thorough. So it was like, let's just go away and think about it. And I'm very gung-ho. So I was like, no, I'm doing the training. I'm going to go and do it. So from it being him dragging me along and me reluctantly going, it then turned to me dragging him along. So I did the trainings on my own. Chris didn't even come to the advanced trainings.
No way.
Yeah, I did it all on my own.
That is amazing.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you know what? I was giggling or trying not to giggle during that story, not because of the story, but because I'm exactly the same as you. And Cedric, my boyfriend, is exactly the same as Chris.
Isn't that why we work well together?
It is, isn't it, Toni?
I drag him along. He reins me in when I think I can do things that are literally impossible. He'll give me the support, but he's like, whoa, let's just hold you back a little bit. So we work really well because we are both life partners and business partners. So we are business partners in all of the property stuff as well. And I think I can, build casinos on the moon and buy the whole of Liverpool and beyond. And he's like, one at a time, two at a time. Let's gradually move forward. But it's what makes us work really well together.
Yeah, of course. So how has it been being life partners and business partners?
Oh, it's had its challenges along the way. We've had many an argument. I think the realization for us was that because we are very different people, our strengths lie in different areas. So we've been really fortunate that quite early on, we were, it was recommended to us to sit down and divvy up the tasks that we do. And that works really well because we're so different. So Chris's idea of hell is standing on a stage and delivering trainings, negotiating, working with finance and dealing with the finance raising, whereas I'm not the most detailed of people. So he works great in the background. He works really well with all of our contractors. He's got a spreadsheet to tell him whether the last spreadsheet worked and all of that. So because our roles are very different, it works really well. We still do butt heads every now and again, but we've been together for so long now. We've been together for 15 years almost. We've realised I know when he needs leaving alone and he knows when I need leaving alone.
It's a good thing that we know though, right? You get to that point where you're like, okay, here's the line.
Yeah, like I'm lighting the touch paper here. It's going to go one way or another.
And I'm sure he knows the same for you though,
God,
right?
yeah. It's more him with me.
I was just about to say the exact same thing, exactly.